gemstones, silent witnesses to history. They observe triumphs and downfalls, clandestine passions and palace intrigues. But what if I told you that one of Queen Elizabeth II's most iconic jewels, a symbol of her unyielding reign, began its journey in the possession of Europe's most scandalous princess? And what if I revealed that today it has become a true bone of contention and a harbinger of a new era, now gracing the person of Queen Camilla? The story I'm about to tell you brims with drama, passion, and the cold gleam of sapphires. It doesn't begin in the majestic halls of Buckingham Palace, but in the somber chambers where a girl grew up, a girl whose name echoed across Europe, provoking both admiration and contempt. Her name was Louise of Belgium. Picture the close of the 19th century in Belgium. Princess Louise, the eldest daughter of King Leopold II, from childhood knew not parental affection, but rather a harsh discipline bordering on cruelty. Her world consisted of a hard cot, icy water for washing, and humiliating punishments, such as kneeling on scattered dried peas for the slightest infraction. Her parents, it seemed, saw in her not a beloved child, but an irritating nuisance. This glacial atmosphere did not temper her. Instead, it ignited within her an unquenchable thirst for warmth, admiration, and luxury, everything she had been deprived of. At 17 years old, an innocent girl utterly unprepared for life, she was married off to her cousin, 31-year-old Prince Philip of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Her wedding night proved such a horror that she, barefoot and terrified, fled the bedroom and hid in the palace greenhouses. This incident eloquently speaks volumes about her naivety. Yet once she found herself at the glittering and hedonistic Habsburg court in Vienna, the innocent bloom swiftly transformed into an exotic and poisonous plant. Louise, as if making up for lost time, plunged headfirst into a whirlwind of balls, receptions, and most notably, scandalous affairs. The European press reveled in her escapades, comparing the princess variously to the legendary French courtesan Ninon de l'Enclos, the cunning Lucrezia Borgia, and even Cleopatra herself. Her own mother, the pious Queen Marie Henriette, desperately appealed to her conscience, but all was in vain. Eventually, her mother publicly declared that her daughter must have lost her mind. Indeed, Louise's behavior was riddled with eccentricities. She was utterly indifferent to her own children, preferring hours of self-admiration over maternal duties. She might sit in the garden, holding a mirror, endlessly admiring her beauty, her reflection, which seemed to love her more than any living person. But her greatest passion, her consuming obsession, was jewelry. She didn't merely love them, she was immersed in them, she lived and breathed them. Her public appearances were akin to a treasury on display. One day, upon seeing her at the theatre, literally draped in diamonds and sapphires from head to toe, an Austrian politician quipped, "Behold, Eve after the fall." Louise collected not only adornments but also lovers, until she met what she believed to be the love of her life, the Croatian hussar Count Geza Matasic, who was 10 years her junior. Their romance was so public, brazen and provocative that not only the imperial court, but also her own father, the King of Belgium, turned their backs on the princess. Her outraged husband, Prince Philip, challenged Matasic to a duel. Fortunately for all involved, the encounter ended without bloodshed, but the scandal was already unstoppable. The final act of this drama was a financial catastrophe. To sustain her lavish lifestyle and indulge her lover's whims, Louise began secretly selling off family heirlooms and precious jewels. Philip, attempting to salvage the family's honor, initially repurchased what his wife had sold, but his patience soon snapped. He placed an announcement in European newspapers, publicly declaring that he would no longer be responsible for his wife's debts. This was the final straw. Louise abandoned her husband, her children, and her status, eloping with Matasic. But their happiness was short-lived. The Count was arrested for financial malfeasance and forgery, leaving the princess alone and destitute. Her family issued a cruel ultimatum. either return to her unloved husband or face commitment to a psychiatric asylum. Louise chose the latter. She spent 4 long years in isolation, forgotten by all save for one of her sisters, who secretly maintained correspondence with her. Her salvation came from an unexpected quarter. Upon his release from prison, the faithful Count Matasic had not forgotten his princess. He orchestrated a daring escape for her, and together they made their way to Paris. But even there, years of penury awaited them. Only after the death of her father, who had officially disinherited her, did Louise manage to reclaim part of her fortune through the courts, 6 million francs. The money, as might be expected, was quickly squandered. The remainder of her life, the former princess who once sparkled at Europe's courts, was spent in poverty, writing her memoirs. She died at the age of 66, outliving her faithful but equally dissolute count by only 6 months. Many of her magnificent jewels, sold for a pittance to settle debts, permanently left the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. They dispersed into the hands of aristocrats, financiers, and even members of other royal families. Among them was a truly exceptional set, a parure of large Ceylonese sapphires and diamonds. And it was the central piece of this parure, a magnificent necklace that was destined to begin a new life, becoming one of the most recognizable jewels of the British crown. But one fragment of this scattered treasure was destined for a fate far grander and more closely scrutinized than its initial owner could ever have imagined. It was fated to fall into the hands of the 20th century's most celebrated monarch. But how? The parure Louise had sold, comprising a tiara, necklace, and earrings, entered Europe's open jewelry market and, as is often the case with such treasures, was ruthlessly disassembled. Each component embarked on its own journey, passing from one owner to the next. The magnificent tiara, which once crowned the scandalous princess's head, resurfaced only in 1950, acquired by one of the largest jewelry houses before its trail once again vanished. But a different, truly regal destiny awaited the necklace. In 1963, nearly half a century after the dramatic dispersal, Queen Elizabeth II set her sights on this very necklace. This was no random acquisition. The Queen, renowned for her impeccable taste and intimate knowledge of her collection, recognized in this piece the perfect complement to one of the gifts dearest to her heart. We're talking about the so-called Victorian sapphire parure. This set, consisting of a tiara and earrings, was a wedding gift from her beloved father, King George VI, in 1947. Her father had acquired it shortly before his daughter's wedding, and these jewels already boasted a rich history, tracing their origins back to the era of Queen Victoria. The tiara gifted by her father was crafted in a neoclassical style, lighter and more ethereal than Princess Louise's rather weighty one. It featured sapphire clusters joined by diamond garlands and festoons and had been created in the mid-19th century. The earrings were pendant drops, showcasing substantial sapphires encased in diamond settings. Elizabeth adored this ensemble, but it felt incomplete, conspicuously lacking a necklace that matched its style and grandeur. And then, Louise's necklace appeared at auction. Its design was pure perfection. 19 large sapphires, cut in rectangular and oval shapes, each encircled by a halo of dazzling old-cut diamonds, were linked together to form a magnificent chain. The stones possessed that quintessential deep, velvety, cornflower blue hue, the color most prized in Ceylonese sapphires. This wasn't merely a stylistic match, it was destiny. The Queen acquired the necklace without hesitation. A minor adjustment, however, was needed to achieve perfect harmony. The royal jewelers from Garrard and Company were given a delicate task to subtly tweak the necklace. They removed the largest central sapphire, which according to some accounts was later used to create a separate brooch. The remaining 18 stones were reassembled, the setting reinforced, and the result was a jewel that looked as if it had been created as part of King George VI's parure from the very beginning. Furthermore, to bring the ensemble to absolute perfection, Elizabeth II later personally commissioned a bracelet of matching design from the jewelers composed of sapphire and diamond links. Thus, from disparate pieces steeped in tales of love, scandal, and royal devotion, one of the world's most magnificent sapphire parures was born, henceforth known to all as Queen Elizabeth II's parure. The Queen first unveiled her new, fully complete sapphire ensemble to the world in 1965 during a state visit to West Germany. It was a triumph. Against the backdrop of a white satin gown and the blue sash of the Order of the Garter, the deep blue of the sapphires radiated with incredible power, underscoring the grandeur and stature of the young monarch. From that moment on, this parure became one of her favorites for the most solemn occasions. Elizabeth particularly favored it throughout the 90s and 2000s, by which time her image was firmly associated with the wisdom and steadfastness of the monarchy. And so, the jewel of a fallen princess became the treasure of a reigning queen. Elizabeth wore it for over half a century, transforming it into a symbol of her reign. But these sapphires were not alone. They were often joined by another, even more legendary sapphire brooch, imbued with love, sorrow, and the very foundation of the modern British monarchy. To truly grasp the profound symbolism of Queen Elizabeth II's sapphire parure, one must turn their gaze to another jewel she almost invariably wore alongside it. This is the famed sapphire and diamond brooch, widely known as the Prince Albert brooch. Occasionally, it is mistakenly identified as Russian, confused with Empress Maria Feodorovna's sapphire brooch, which also eventually found its way into the British treasury. But that, as they say, is an entirely different tale. The Prince Albert brooch holds a sacred significance for the House of Windsor. It was a wedding gift of unparalleled sentiment. The day before their wedding in 1840, Prince Albert presented his bride, the young Queen Victoria, with this magnificent brooch, an enormous Ceylonese sapphire of impeccable clarity and color, encircled by 12 substantial round diamonds. Victoria was so utterly enchanted that she immediately pinned it to her wedding gown. For her, this brooch transcended mere adornment. It became a talisman, a tangible emblem of their all-consuming love. She wore it faithfully throughout her entire life. In her will, Victoria stipulated that the brooch was to remain forever the property of the crown, passing from one monarch to the next. And so it did, descending to Queen Alexandra, then to Queen Mary, followed by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and finally to Elizabeth II herself. By donning the parure, further graced by this historic brooch, Elizabeth II crafted more than just a harmonious jewelry ensemble. She intricately wove together several threads of history. First, it served as a profound tribute to her father, who had gifted her the tiara and earrings. Second, it forged an unbreakable link to her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, whose brooch and whose very era these gems embodied. And third, it was an unspoken affirmation of the monarchy's continuity and unwavering stability. The scandalous provenance of Princess Louise's necklace was, in a sense, purified and absorbed by the sterling reputation and enduring legacy of the British crown. The Queen's approach to selecting her jewels was always remarkably thoughtful. She reserved the sapphire parure for occasions when her attire featured shades of white, silver, or naturally blue. It perfectly complemented the deep blue ribbon of Britain's highest chivalric order, the Order of the Garter, which the Queen donned for the most significant state receptions and banquets. The sapphires underscored her royal status, their cool, profound hue resonating with serenity, wisdom, and authority. Elizabeth II last appeared publicly in her full sapphire splendor in 2019. She posed for an official portrait by photographer Chris Jackson in the White Drawing Room of Windsor Castle. In that iconic image, we behold the Queen in her complete majesty, her silver hair crowned by the sapphire tiara, the historic necklace gleaming around her neck, and the earrings from her father gracing her ears. This portrait became a poignant, silent farewell. Following her passing in 2022, all her personal jewels, along with the crown jewels, returned to the vast royal treasury, awaiting their new destiny under the stewardship of her son, King Charles III. For decades, these deep blue stones were synonymous with one woman, one monarch. Their cool, unwavering sparkle seemed a perfect mirror of her own character. This is why, after her passing, the world held its breath, wondering who would dare to wear them next. And the answer turned out to be the most contentious in the history of the House of Windsor. With King Charles III's ascension to the throne and the coronation of his consort Camilla, the world began to scrutinize how Queen Elizabeth II's legendary jewels would be distributed and worn. Every appearance of the new queen in a piece of jewelry from her mother-in-law's collection is examined under a microscope, for this is not merely fashion, it is politics, symbolism, and a profound message. As the Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla had access to a limited number of royal tiaras. Most often, she wore her own family's cubit shan tiara, or the famous Greville tiara, known as the honeycomb, which Elizabeth II had earmarked for her lifetime use. But her status as queen opened the doors to the main treasury, and one of the first high-ranking jewels she chose was precisely the sapphire parure. This choice was widely perceived by the public as a resounding declaration. The sapphire parure was so inextricably linked to Elizabeth's image that its appearance on Camilla ignited a firestorm of emotion. It was not just an ornament, it was a symbol, and for many, it became a moment of unspoken, symbolic confrontation. On one side of the scale stood Elizabeth's image, flawless, steadfast, a queen who dedicated her entire life to duty, a symbol of stability for the nation. On the other, Camilla, a woman with a complex past, the one for decades considered the cause of the heir apparent's marital breakdown and Princess Diana's tragedy. Her first appearance in the full sapphire parure occurred during her inaugural state banquet as queen, hosted in honor of the President of South Africa. It was her post-coronation tiara debut, and the choice fell precisely on the Belgian sapphires. The reaction was predictable. Social media and tabloids exploded. The most ardent detractors branded it blasphemy and a pathetic parody. They saw it not as a transfer of legacy, but as a usurpation of symbols belonging to another, far more beloved queen. It was a rigorous test for Camilla, and she, it seemed, was ready for it. She did not back down. Sometime later, she once again wore the tiara and earrings to a reception for the diplomatic corps at Buckingham Palace, demonstrating that this choice was deliberate and final. And then she went even further, beginning to tame the parure, wearing it in her own way. At one event, she appeared only in Princess Louise's necklace, complementing it with different earrings and a bracelet, showing that she was not merely copying Elizabeth's iconic looks, but integrating these historic jewels into her very own style. Why then, out of all the myriad treasures, did this particular sapphire set so capture the new queen's favor? To explain it away as simply her favorite color, blue, would be far too superficial. Yes, Camilla does indeed often choose outfits in shades of blue and azure, but the truth here runs deeper. Blue is the color of monarchy, the color of power, loyalty, and nobility. By donning Elizabeth's sapphires, Camilla makes a powerful statement. She is not attempting to erase the memory of her predecessor. On the contrary, she is inscribing herself into the line of succession. She is in essence declaring, "I am here now. I am the queen, and I embrace the full weight and grandeur of this crown." For Camilla, these sapphires are a vital tool in constructing her own image as monarch, and by all accounts, this strategy is proving effective. While her initial appearances in the parure were met with a torrent of criticism, over time, public opinion has begun to soften. People have started to notice the immense self-improvement Queen Camilla has undertaken. She is, without a doubt, working with the finest royal stylists, image consultants, and etiquette advisors. If one compares photographs of Camilla from the era of her romance with Charles to her current official portraits, the difference is colossal. Everything has changed. her posture, her demeanor before the cameras, even her smile. She has become more reserved, gracious, and truly royal. The moniker "country bumpkin," which dogged her for decades, is gradually fading into the past. She is acquiring that elusive royal polish, and the sapphire parure is an indispensable part of this transformation. She isn't just wearing a tiara, she is learning to bear its weight, both literally and figuratively. Thus, a jewel born in a whirlwind of scandal, which became a symbol of an unshakable reign, and then the object of fierce debate, continues its astonishing journey. From the disgraced Princess Louise to the revered Queen Elizabeth, and now to the controversial Queen Camilla. These stones have witnessed everything. They have absorbed the dramas, triumphs, and quiet moments of history, becoming something far more than just a heap of precious minerals. They have become a mirror, reflecting the very essence of a changing monarchy. What other secrets do these cold blue crystals hold? And whose chapter in the history of the British crown are they destined to illuminate with their sparkle in the future? Of this, we can only speculate. And what do you think about this captivating jewel journey? Do you believe Camilla has the right to wear such iconic jewels of Elizabeth II? Or should they have forever remained a symbol of a bygone era? Please share your thoughts in the comments. We are very eager to hear them. And of course, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new tales of the world's greatest jewels.